The woman collapsed into his arms, mascara smeared, soaked to the bone. "Don't let them take me," she whispered, gripping his shirt with trembling fingers. Elijah blinked, confused. Rainwater dripped down the back of his neck as he tried to steady her. One heel was missing. Her purse clutched tightly in her other hand, like it held her last breath. She smelled like Chanel and chaos. Moments earlier, he had just ended his late-night shift at the rooftop restaurant when he spotted her stumbling through the parking lot, cursing at the sky. She looked familiar, but he didn't realize who she was until she turned and the streetlight hit her face. Vivian Dane, the richest woman in the city, tech empire heiress, fashion icon, and walking headline, and now she was here, drunk and barefoot, begging a waiter not to let someone take her. "Who's after you?" Elijah asked, trying to keep his voice calm, though his heart was already pounding. They know, I know," she mumbled, slurring the words, eyes glassy. "I saw something I shouldn't. Please, just don't call anyone." She suddenly crumpled in his arms. Elijah looked around. No one. The restaurant had emptied. The valet was gone. The manager had left 20 minutes ago. He had two choices: walk away, or help a woman he knew could ruin his life with one wrong word, or change it forever. He picked her up. The ride in his old Honda was silent, except for the hum of the heater and Vivian's shallow breathing. She had passed out completely, slumped against the window, hands still clutched around her purse. When he pulled up to the address on her ID, a penthouse suite overlooking the harbor, he didn't wake her. Something in his gut told him not to leave her alone. He parked, helped her inside using the private elevator, and entered her condo using her fingerprint, which surprisingly worked with his help. The apartment was massive, cold, empty. As he set her gently on the velvet couch, Vivian stirred and opened one eye. "You're different," she murmured. "They'll hate that." Then she passed out again. Elijah stood for a moment in the silence, and that's when he saw it. A red folder lying on the glass coffee table. Confidential was stamped in bold black ink. He shouldn't have. He knew that, but his eyes flicked down, and his fingers followed. Inside were photos, documents, names, wire transfers, government stamps, all linked to Vivian Dane's company and several people in prison. One photo made his stomach twist. It was someone he knew, his brother. Before he could process what he was seeing, he heard a sound, soft, metallic, the door handle. Someone was unlocking the door. Elijah froze. Vivian was still unconscious. Whoever was coming in wasn't using the elevator. Elijah's pulse spiked as the man stepped fully into the penthouse, his black leather shoes clicking softly on the marble floor. The silenced pistol was angled down, but the intent was unmistakable. This wasn't a robbery. This was a hit. And Elijah, he wasn't supposed to be here. "Step away from her," the man ordered, voice calm and professional, like this was routine, like murder was routine. Elijah didn't move. His eyes darted once to the couch. Vivian hadn't stirred. She was dead weight. His fingers itched to go for his phone, but the man was already lowering his aim. "I said, step, Vivian," Elijah shouted, cutting him off. It was a gamble, a loud one, a desperate one, but she'd murmured warnings in the car. Someone was after her. Maybe some part of her was still alert. Her eyes snapped open, confused, then panicked. "Elijah," she croaked. That was all the distraction he needed. Elijah lunged forward, crashing into the man just as the gun fired. The bullet slammed into the ceiling. They struggled, bodies slamming into the kitchen island. The man was strong, trained, but Elijah had one advantage. He wasn't supposed to win, and people who aren't supposed to win fight dirty. He grabbed a metal wine opener from the counter and drove it hard into the man's shoulder. The scream was short, clipped like the man had been trained not to let pain slow him down, but it did. Elijah shoved him hard against the wall and grabbed the gun. The man stumbled, then darted for the door, clutching his bleeding shoulder. He was gone in seconds. Elijah locked the door, chest heaving. Vivian sat up slowly, her face pale, mascara smeared. She looked like a ghost who'd just been yanked back into the living. "You weren't supposed to be here," she whispered. "Yeah," he said the same thing. Elijah replied, voice shaking. "Want to tell me why a guy with a gun just tried to kill you?" Vivian looked down, her lip trembled. "You don't understand. That folder, you saw it." He hesitated. "Yeah." Her eyes filled with fear. "Then you're in danger too." She stood up unsteadily and moved toward the couch, retrieving the folder Elijah had shoved underneath. Her hands shook as she opened it. My father's company Dane Systems, it's not just software. We build data security for governments, firewalls, encryption, surveillance. I thought you made apps for luxury hotels. That's the face we show. She sat, swallowing hard. I found out last month they were using our systems for blackmail, gathering data, secrets on judges, politicians, celebrities, selling them. Elijah's eyes narrowed. To who? She looked up. Whoever pays. Vivian reached into the folder and pulled out a photo. It was Elijah's brother Tariq in handcuffs, surrounded by D agents. You said you recognized someone, she whispered. Was it him? Elijah nodded slowly, stunned. That's my brother. He's been locked up for a year. Drug trafficking charges. But he swore he was innocent. She slid a document across the table. Wire transfers. Manipulated evidence logs. A Dane Systems email signature. They used him, Vivian said. They planted data through his phone. Got him arrested so he wouldn't speak out. He saw something in a shipment he wasn't supposed to, so they made him disappear. Legally. Elijah's mouth went dry. His brother, innocent, silenced. Why now? He asked. Why come to me? Why run? Vivian looked him in the eyes. Because I'm going to expose them, but I can't do it alone, and I don't know who I can trust. Elijah sat down slowly. A day ago, he was folding napkins and taking tips from rude couples who didn't remember his name. Now he was hiding a billionaire whistleblower in her own penthouse, and holding evidence that could unravel one of the most powerful companies in the country. I need you to stay, Vivian said. Just tonight, just until I figure out what's next. Elijah shook his head, overwhelmed. They sent someone with a gun. Vivian, this isn't some office scandal. This is war. I know, she whispered. And if I don't finish what I started, they'll win. That night, Elijah didn't sleep. He sat in the corner of the penthouse living room, gun on his lap, eyes on the door. Every sound made, his spine stiffened. Vivian slept fitfully on the couch, muttering in her sleep. The red folder clutched to her chest like a shield. At 4:07 a.m., his phone vibrated. A text, unknown number. Your brother's life depends on your silence. Walk away. His breath caught. He looked up. Vivian was still asleep, and beneath the message, a photo, Tariq in his cell. Bruised, bloody, alive. Elijah stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the screen. His brother's face, battered eyes, swollen, lips split, glared back at him like a haunting ghost through the pixels. Your brother's life depends on your silence. Walk away. The words burned through his chest. He turned the phone around slowly, hiding the screen, his eyes drifting toward the couch where Vivian lay curled up, silent, unaware. She had risked everything to tell the truth. And now, Elijah had been dragged into a storm, not of his making, with a man he loved on the line. His brother wasn't just a name in some legal file anymore. He was the hostage in Elijah's heart. By morning, the rain had stopped. Sunlight poured through the penthouse windows, too bright, too calm, a cruel contrast to the war raging in Elijah's mind. Vivian sat at the kitchen island, sipping water, her hands still shaking. She looked at him with bloodshot eyes. Thanks for staying, she said. I know this isn't your fight. Elijah gave her a quiet nod. He hadn't mentioned the text. Not yet. You said you wanted to expose them, he said. How? V leaned in, voice low. I have copies of the files. On a secure drive, but I need a clean channel, a reporter, someone who isn't bought. I've been working on that. But there's more. She reached into the folder and pulled out a photo. A man in a suit, stern, powerful, shaking hands with someone who looked vaguely military. This is Senator Halbrook, my father's oldest ally, she said. They funneled data to his campaign, made threats, buried scandals. He's there, insurance policy. And if I leak this, he'll destroy me. Elijah leaned over the photo. Then why keep it? Because if I disappear, someone needs to know who did it. She looked at him then, really looked like she was gauging how much more weight she could put on his shoulders. That afternoon, Elijah slipped out for air. Vivian had insisted she'd be fine for a few hours. She had a contact she wanted to meet, quietly, discreetly. Elijah needed to think, and he needed to make a call. He sat in his car and dialed a number he hadn't used in almost a year. A gruff voice answered on the second ring. Who the hell? It's me, Elijah. Silence. Then, Eli. Man, is that really you, Tariq? I got your picture. I know you didn't do what they said. There was a pause, and when Tariq spoke again, his voice cracked. They're watching me, Eli, listening. I'm scared. Man, I'm going to get you out. Elijah, don't. They're not just cops or feds. There's something else. These people, they run everything. I saw something I wasn't supposed to see on a freight job. Next thing I knew, they had a fake paper trail. Planted drugs, a court-appointed lawyer who told me to shut up. I tried to fight back. They beat me, took my letters. I thought I was going to die. Elijah closed his eyes, jaw tight. You won't. Not while I'm breathing. He hung up and started the car, driving aimlessly through the city until he ended up by the docks, the place his brother used to work. He parked and stared out at the cargo ships in the distance, brain spinning. Then his phone buzzed again. Vivian, meet me at the corner of Bayridge and 6th. Something's wrong. Hurry. No explanation. No detail. Elijah threw the car in drive and sped across town, breaking every red light he could. When he got to the corner, Vivian was nowhere in sight. He waited. 5 minutes, 10. Then a sleek black town car pulled up across the street, and the back door opened, just wide enough for Elijah to see inside. Vivian, face frozen, eyes wide, lips trembling, and beside her, the man from last night, the one with the gun, now in a clean suit. No blood, no limp, like nothing had ever happened. Behind the wheel, a silent driver, sunglasses on, hands at 10 and 2. Elijah stepped forward, instinctively. Vivian's lips moved. Run. Then the door shut, and the car peeled off. Elijah chased it for a block before he stopped, gasping for breath. People on the sidewalk stared. He knew what he'd seen. She'd been taken, or worse, she'd given herself up. Either way, it was a trap. Back at the penthouse, the place had been wiped. The folder, gone. The wine glass Vivian had used, washed and dried. Even the faint bloodstain from the man's shoulder wound had been scrubbed clean. It was like she'd never existed. But Elijah wasn't done. He sat on the couch, thinking hard, and then he remembered, when she'd leaned forward. That morning, her necklace had fallen out from under her robe. A silver key, not just jewelry. It had tiny numbers on the side, a safety deposit box. She hadn't said it out loud, but Elijah had seen her glance at it more than once. It was a clue, and it was all he had left. Elijah stood outside Bank or Trust, drenched in sweat. Despite the cool morning breeze, he clutched the tiny silver key tightly in his hand. The numbers etched into the side now memorized like scripture. SPX-1147. It didn't feel real. The last 48 hours had unraveled everything he thought he knew about life, power, and silence. He was a waiter, not a hacker, not a spy, not a man running from killers in black suits, but he had no choice. Now Vivian was gone. Tariq was a pawn, and inside that deposit box might be the only thing that could break the walls around them both. The bank lobby was a quiet vault of glass and polished marble, to clean, to still. The receptionist smiled politely, her nameplate reading Darla. I'd like to access a safety deposit box, Elijah said, keeping his voice calm. Of course. Do you have the key and the authorization ID? He handed her the key and, with it, a folded note Vivian had once stuffed into the folder, a list of numbers he assumed were meaningless until now. One of them matched the account tag. Darla took both and typed into the system. A pause. Her eyes flicked to him. Her smile faltered for a second, then returned. One moment. Sir, please follow me. She led him past the counters and into a hallway behind a locked door, using a fingerprint scanner and a retinal scan. I didn't know banks had retina stuff, he said. We do for high-risk clients, she replied softly. Clients like Ms. Vivian Dane. Box 1147 was stored in a private room with steel walls and no cameras. Darla unlocked the wall panel, slid out a long black case, and left him alone. The second she was gone, Elijah popped the lock and lifted the lid. Inside, a flash drive, a passport, and a handwritten note in looping cursive. If you found this, it means I trusted you, or I'm gone. Inside this drive is every deal, every lie, and every name that bought silence. Don't trust the press. Don't go to the police. They are already inside. You were the only one who didn't ask me for anything. That's why I chose UVD. Elijah clenched the note in his fist. Damn it, Vivian. He pocketed the drive passport, a note, but froze when he spotted one more thing hidden beneath the black velvet liner. A second flash drive, unmarked, no label, no protection. It was probably nothing. A decoy, but he took it anyway. Back in his car, Elijah drove straight to the one person he thought might help, or at least not get him killed. DeAndre Morris, his old high school friend who now lived in a converted garage and spent his nights hacking firewalls for bored cryptocurrency. "Nerds, you're into something deep, aren't you?" DeAndre asked, watching the progress bar as he decrypted the main flash drive. "You look like you've been chased by helicopters." "I think I'm being followed by billionaires," Elijah muttered. "Same thing." They laughed for a brief moment. It was the first time Elijah had smiled in days, but the smile vanished the second the drive opened. Thousands of files, documents, surveillance footage, emails, transaction logs from offshore accounts, footage of people Elijah recognized from the news, judges, politicians, celebrities, in compromising conversations, and right in the middle, a video file, labeled only Phoenix Room 3:14 a.m. He clicked play. The screen showed a private room in what looked like a high-res lounge. Plush red velvet chairs, dim lights, floor-to-ceiling windows. A meeting was in progress. Vivian was there, seated quietly in the corner. Across from her, Senator Halbrook, two men in suits, and Elijah's brother, Tariq. Not in chains, not in uniform, dressed in business attire, shaking hands, smiling. DeAndre froze. "Wait, what the hell? That's your brother." Elijah couldn't speak. In the video, Tariq slid a folder across the table and said, "With this, your systems are clean. Nobody will trace it back to Dane's systems, or me." Vivian stood up, trying to protest. One of the men shoved her back down. Tariq didn't look at her. He didn't even flinch. Elijah turned off the video. Everything inside him turned cold. His brother, the one he'd nearly died to protect, was working with them. Had Viv known? Was this why she vanished? Had she been protecting Elijah from the truth? He sat back, mind spinning. Then he remembered the second flash drive. He plugged it in. Only one file. A voice recording. He hit play. "They'll try to break him." "Vivian," a deep voice said, "turn him against you. Against everyone. But if he finds this, maybe he'll understand." Pause. "Tariq's not one of them. He's pretending. He's inside, trying to take the system down from the inside." Elijah's heart pounded. Vivian had left the second drive for a reason. As a test. As proof. "He's doing it for Elijah," the voice added. "To make things right." DeAndre turned slowly. "You've got enough to bring down an empire, but you need to be smart. They'll hunt you for this." Elijah closed the laptop. "No," he said. "They already are." Elijah stood outside the Clearwater Correctional Facility, staring through the chain-link fence topped with razor wire. His fists were clenched in the pockets of his hoodie, the two flash drives hidden beneath his jacket, zipped tight against his chest like they were part of his heartbeat now. He had called ahead and asked to visit Tariq, using his real name, risking that someone inside might flag the request. But he had to know. Had his brother betrayed him, or had he risked his soul to play a part in something darker? Something that could finally set them both free. A guard called his name and led him into a cold visitation room with bulletproof glass and an old phone, dangling on a metal cord. Tariq walked in 5 minutes later. He looked rough, thinner. His face was healing, but the bruises were still there. A healing scar crossed the left side of his jaw, and his eyes, they didn't light up like they used to. They narrowed, cautious. He sat down, picked up the receiver, and gave Elijah a slow nod. "You shouldn't have come here," Tariq said. "I had to," Elijah replied. "You're all I've got." A flicker of pain crossed Tariq's face, but he said nothing. "I saw the footage," Elijah continued. "From the Phoenix room. You were handing files to Halbrook. You didn't even look at Vivian when they shoved her." Tariq closed his eyes. "You shouldn't have seen that. So it's true." "No," Tariq said quickly. "It's what they wanted recorded. I told her." "She knew. She left you that drive, didn't she?" Elijah nodded slowly. "Yeah, a voice message. Said you were pretending. Inside." Tariq leaned forward. "I've been in hell, Eli. Not because of this place, but because I had to act like I was one of them. I had to watch them take people down, destroy families, ruin reputations. If I didn't play the part, they would have killed me. They told me if I didn't cooperate, you'd be next." Elijah felt like something was closing in around his chest. "So, you've been working with them?" To survive. No, Tariq said. To finish them. Tariq leaned even closer to the glass. There's a third drive, Elijah. Elijah blinked. What? Vivian and I set it up months ago. If anything happened to her, or me, it would activate remotely. It's got everything, names, bank logs, even Halbrook's private confessions. But I can't get to it from in here. Where is it? Tariq paused, then said softly, under Mom's piano. Elijah's eyes widened. That dusty upright, Yamaha, in their childhood home, in the storage unit no one had touched since she passed away. It still existed. And somehow, even in death, their mother was protecting them. Why didn't you tell me? Elijah asked, his voice trembling. Because I needed you clean, Tariq said. If I told you everything and you got caught, they'd use you, or worse, kill you. Vivian insisted. You be the last line, the one person they couldn't predict. Elijah felt dizzy. They already tried to kill me. I know, he whispered. And they're not done. They think the second drive was all we had. They don't know about the third. But they're watching always. A guard knocked on the glass. 1 minute, he called out. Tariq leaned hard into the phone. You need to get that drive, Eli. You need to finish what we started. Elijah swallowed. And then what? Tariq's eyes darkened. Then you expose them, all of them. But if you don't, they'll make sure you disappear like the rest. That night, Elijah drove 3 hours north to the dusty town where he grew up. He used a fake name at the motel, waited until 2 a.m., and then broke into the storage unit with bolt cutters and shaky hands. The place smelled of mothballs and old paper, dust-coated everything, boxes of photo albums, plastic bins of childhood clothes, and in the back, a brown sheet draped over the upright piano. He pulled it away gently. Still there, untouched, he knelt down, feeling along the underside of the frame, the way his mother used to when she'd search for lost keys. And then his fingers found it, a hollow space, a sealed plastic bag, taped beneath the baseboard. Inside was a flash drive, and a photograph. Vivian, smiling, arms around both brothers. She looked free. Elijah returned to Dondre's garage an hour before dawn. They plugged in the final drive, and what came up wasn't just documents, it was video. Hours of it. Hidden camera recordings, audio of Halbrook admitting to falsifying legal records, footage of senior Dane Systems officials bribing international operatives, even a recorded conversation of a staged overdose made to look like suicide. Elijah sat in silence as it all unfolded. Names, faces, crimes, proof, and it ended with a single recorded message from Vivian. To whoever finds this, I believed the truth would set me free, but I was wrong. Truth doesn't free people. People do. If you're listening, you're the one left standing. Please finish what I couldn't. DeAndre turned slowly in his chair. Eli, this is explosive. You leak this, you'll set fire to 100 powerful lives. But they'll come for you with everything they've got. I don't care, Elijah said. DeAndre hesitated. There's something else. Something weird. He pulled up a hidden folder. Inside were 2 emails. From Vivian to Halbrook. It's done. He believes everything. The brothers will walk straight into it. Let the waiter think he's the hero. He'll lead us to the last drive. Elijah stared at the screen, heart pounding, eyes locked on the 2 emails. It's done. He believes everything. The brothers will walk straight into it. Let the waiter think he's the hero. He'll lead us to the last drive. Vivian's name was on them, her digital signature. The timestamps matched the day she was taken. But something wasn't right. He remembered the way she looked in that car, terrified, trembling, eyes pleading when she whispered, "Run." That hadn't been a trap. That had been a warning. I don't think she wrote those, Elijah said, his voice raw. DeAndre looked at him sideways. What are you saying? They're verified. Too perfect, Elijah replied. Everything. About her messages, handwritten notes, voice memos, codes. They were personal. These emails feel cold, formal, like someone copied her tone, but didn't understand her. You think she was framed? I think someone inside Dane Systems sent these under her ID after they took her, to break us apart, to make me stop. DeAndre leaned back. So if they're fake, then Vivian's still on our side. Elijah nodded. And still alive. They didn't have much time. The information on the third drive was a nuke, and Dane Systems would stop at nothing to keep it buried. Elijah made his choice. They were going to leak the files, all of them, but not through the press, or a whistleblower site, or some flashy tweet. They were going to live stream it to millions and show the world Vivian's truth in her own voice. No spin, no edits. Just her words and the evidence. Within 24 hours, DeAndre had written a script to upload the entire archive to cloud servers across 5 continents. They bought burner phones, cloaked their location with multiple VPN layers, and created a viral campaign teaser. Watch what they hid tonight at 9 p.m. Hashtags exploded across social media. Hashtag Dane leaks, hashtag Phoenix room, truth, hashtag where is Vivian. People were hungry, the elite were nervous, and Elijah was ready. At 9 p.m. sharp, the feed went live. Elijah stood in front of the camera, not as a whistleblower, not as a hacker, not even as a hero, just a waiter, caught in something bigger than him, holding on to the only thing that mattered, the truth. My name is Elijah Moore, he said. You don't know me, but you know them. He gestured behind him to the projection, the Phoenix room footage, Vivian's files. It's the evidence. Vivian Dane risked everything to stop them. My brother was used to silence her. I was nearly killed to bury this. He paused, looked straight at the lens. And now, you get to decide what happens next. He pressed play. The footage played. And the world watched. In 1 hour, the feed was shared over 8 million times. Journalists scrambled. Politicians fumbled. Denials poured in. And so did arrest warrants. By morning, it was everywhere, but so was the danger. Elijah knew it was only a matter of time before they tracked him down. He and DeAndre fled their hideout and split up. They destroyed the original drives and vanished into different parts of the country. But what Elijah didn't expect was the knock. 3 days later, in a quiet motel room on the edge of Nashville. He heard it, 3 soft knocks. He looked through the peephole, heart frozen. Vivian, alive, thin, bruised but breathing. When he opened the door, she didn't speak. She just fell into his arms, shaking. I thought you were dead, Elijah whispered. They tried, she murmured. They faked the emails. I was locked in a black site offshore. I escaped 2 nights ago. I saw the video. I saw what you did. He pulled her into the room, and they sat in silence. Then she asked, softly, do you hate me? Elijah shook his head. No, I believed in you, even when it got hard. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't deserve that, she whispered, but thank you. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was massive. Senator Halbrook was indicted. Several Dane Systems executives were arrested. Global investigations were launched. Some ran, some disappeared, but the truth couldn't be buried again. Vivian came out of hiding and testified publicly. Tariq was released from prison, fully exonerated, and offered witness protection, which he declined. I'm done hiding, he told Elijah. I want to live in the open, like Mom would have wanted. Elijah went back to his job, but this time, not as a waiter. He helped co-found a non-profit with Vivian and DeAndre, exposing corporate corruption and helping whistleblowers find safety. And the name of the organization, Phoenix Truth. Final lines, emotional closure. On a quiet evening months later, Elijah stood by the water where it had all started. The rooftop restaurant, now under new ownership. Vivian joined him, handing him a coffee. No security guards, no headlines, just peace. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I hadn't helped you that night? He asked. Vivian smiled. Every day. Elijah looked at her. Do you regret dragging me into this? She paused. No, she said, because you didn't just help me home that night. She turned to face him fully. You helped me come back to life. Final lesson. Sometimes the smallest choice, like helping a stranger in the rain, becomes the first step in rewriting not just your future, but the fate of a broken world. The end.